All right, probably not as early as the last class, but I think we'll get done a little bit early in here too. And this is going to be the only day I'm not going to use the Mac. You probably won't even need one for what we're going to go through today because a lot of it'll be review. All right, and I'm going to actually ask you to take a look at some stuff between now and Thursday as well. So this syllabus mirrors the last one that we just looked at, except if you just take out Android and plug in iPad, iPhone, it would pretty much be what you'd be looking for. All right, so same stuff with the class attendance, the phone policy, etc. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. If you look, as always, here's the magic spot to look. All right, so that's where the all the course material is. Right there, P: CIS 152 153 iPhone, Spring 2016. If you look underneath there again, lots of articles that I found on Swift. I'm not going to go over any of them. Anything in class, notice I put that in there for today. Don't worry about it. We're going to look at it in just a second. All right, you don't need. I could have even taken it out of there. I think I told you I originally bought the old copy of the book for iOS 8. So I put all that source code in there too. But this is the source code for your book, right there. All right, it's in there someplace, or else it's there. I don't know. Maybe it is right here. I guess it's in here someplace. And if it's not, let me know. Source code right there. All right, the syllabus is there. Of course, I didn't put the Wenderlich things in here. Again, going out to raywenderlich.com, he had some really nice beginning tutorials on Swift. There's 3 of them. And I've got them saved someplace. I just have to see exactly where I saved them. All right, because I did save them somewhere.
In class, I think.
Yep, there they are. And another thing that I did, I think I've told you about this, but I throw so much stuff at you, and I apologize for that, but I'd rather give you way too much information than not enough. But I don't know if I've ever shown you this website before, but it's called java2s.com. And it's not just Java. All right? You can notice there's Java here, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. And one of the things they have over here somewhere, there's a Swift tutorial. And what I did was, I don't know why I did this, but I did it anyway. Yesterday, I went and broke down each individual lesson and grabbed them all, put them all together, and then from that, again, I don't know where I put it, but I made a tutorial. All right, so it's 61 pages, and it's all stuff from Java 2S. Each lesson is in there. I saved it both as a PDF and as a Word file. Again, I'd rather give you way too much information than not enough information. All right? Am I right in assuming that everybody who needs a PDF copy of the book has it? Okay. So that's pretty much, as far as all the stuff that's in there. There's a lot of information, again, that's in there. So what I'd like to start doing right away is to just jump into the book. This book, unlike the other one, as I mentioned earlier, this one has like 105 chapters in it. All right, this is what I'd like to do, okay? I'd like to spend about the first 5 weeks, ideally, and go over as much material as we can. I'm not going to put a number on that. I don't know what the number is going to be. But I'd like to go over as much in about the first 5 weeks as we can. We'll still write code, so don't worry about that. All right? Then after that, for about the next 5 weeks, one day will be a lecture, and then the next day will be a lab. So Thursdays will probably be a lab. Thursdays seem to be a very popular time for people to cut out of here anyway. All right? I mean, I'll be here. John will be here. But it'll give you a chance that if you want, you are going to have, you're really only going to have one big assignment in here, just like in the Android class, and that's going to be to actually build an app. All right, if you build the same app in both classes, so the one that you were talking about, Zane, if what was your brother-in-law, if he wants it both for the for iOS, for the iPhone and for Android, that's fine. If you want to do 2 different ones, All right, I've had people before, they build one kind of app and then they build a game in the other one. However you want to do it is fine. All right. One thing about this book, if you haven't looked through it, today we're going to go through the start here, the joining the developer program, the installing, the guided tour of Xcode, the introduction to playgrounds, and most of the next few chapters, constants and variables. You already know this stuff. Operators and expressions, flow control, switch statement. I'd like to get through those 9 chapters, and I would like to get through all of those today, but it's only 60 pages. All right? And then talk about some of that stuff that's in the Wenderlich and talk about a few other things. All right? So, I mean, if I keep perusing my way down here, notice once you get up to about chapter 50, then they go into a bunch of stuff on touches, gestures, etc. Then in the 60s, they talk about some core graphic stuff, and there's some stuff in there with databases. When you get into the 70s, it's games. When you get into the 80s, it's kind of a hodgepodge. There's photos and a few other things. When you get into the 90s, again, it's some audio and video stuff. And the 100 on is basically how you package your app. All right? We'll get through as much of the book as we can. If you feel like I'm throwing way too much at you and you're like, this is not even making any sense, then let me know. All right? And I know how that can be. I know how I can be. It's not that I'm trying to do that, but I'd like to be able to give you as much information as I possibly can. All right? So, chapter 1. Again, the goal of this book is to teach you the necessary skills to write apps for an iPhone or an iPad or both. So the aim of the book, the author says here, is to teach you those skills using iOS 9. They wrote the book for iOS 8 originally, so they say that these are the changes we made between iOS 8 and iOS 9. You don't care. All right? That was fast. Now, joining the Apple Developer Program. Okay? We've talked about this before. It's $99 a year. Now, supposedly, I haven't tried it yet. All right, so what I'm telling you right now, I haven't tried it yet. But supposedly, you now, if you join, not the developer program, because there's a few programs that you can join. There is a free one. Supposedly now, if you join the free one, this is something new within the last year, you can hook up Apple appliances to your computer and run them from there. You could never do that before. You had to become a member of the App Developer Program, pay that $99, otherwise you use the simulator for everything you did. They claim that's not the case anymore. I have not tried it, so I don't know. And then they also talk about, should you join the App Developer Program? Well, there actually is an education one here. I joined it a couple years ago, and you're not in it technically, but the school is. I'm not really in it either. And they said, oh, join it because we're going to send you all this wonderful stuff through email. They never sent me a friggin' thing. Nothing. I didn't notice any difference between joining it and not joining it. Okay? And literally, when I tried to join it, they had to have the sign off from our CIO, who was in another country at the time. And trying to get a hold of her and have her sign all the paperwork and get it back was a cluster in itself. All right, so it made for some interesting times. The author says you probably don't really want to enroll in the developer program until you've written your first app or you're really seriously writing your first app that you want to make some money on. I will tell you, I've mentioned this story before. You may or may not have heard it. I've got a colleague who works in the math department, not in the IT department, but in the math department at Madison Area Technical College. Doesn't call themselves that anymore. They call themselves Madison College. But in their IT department, they teach a lot of different programming. All right, and this guy has created an app that it's some DNA modules and stuff that it shows. And the last time I talked to him was 3 or 4 years ago. He made over $100,000 on the app. All right, that said, I said, well, you did really well. And he said, well, it took me about a dozen years to create it. And I keep tweaking it and tweaking it. So if I broke it down, I wouldn't want to know how much money I'm making per hour because I probably wouldn't be that happy. All right. It may have changed, but last year when I taught this class, you may not believe this, but the average price of an app at the App Store was $1.99. because there are tons of apps out there for free, and there's tons of apps out there for 99 cents. And you may or may not have heard me say this shtick before. Why 99 cents? Anybody guess? It's right, because people are thinking, I'm not even spending $1, even if it stinks. It didn't even cost me $1. And that's why people market it that way. All right, and a lot of times you can get a free version of a game or something else, but it doesn't have all the bells and whistles on it. It's because, again, as we talked about before with the lynda.com or whatever, they're trying to hook you in. All right? You could run ads, yeah, and they even talk about that a little bit at the end of the book, yeah. All right. So, installing Xcode 7 and the iOS 9 SDK. The only thing that you really have to be cognizant of here is if for some reason we hear that there's been an update to iOS, or there's been an update to Xcode where they're fixing an error, we're not going to touch these this semester. All right, John's done a good job of setting everything up, and since we have no support for the Macs from IT, I just assume not do anything to them and not have to risk, hurting what's already working. If you used a machine last semester, you'll be using the same one this semester. If you don't remember your number, ask John. And I think it's in the cabinet too. If you didn't have one last semester, John's already given you a number. That's in there also. All right, if you still have any problems, talk to John or talk to me. All right. I will tell you, John, the plan is he will be here all semester, and he will be here from 1 to 5. So that cabinet should be open every Tuesday and every Thursday. All right. As far as he's also here from, you're the afternoon guy, Monday, 2 to 5. He's here on Mondays and Wednesdays. So if you ever wanted to come in then, by Monday, Wednesday, just so you know, there is no one in here from 8 to 10 all week long. So if you ever want to come in here early to work, you can. All right. There is no one in here Monday and Wednesdays from 1 to 3. So if you want to come in there and work, you can. My class at 10 o'clock on Tuesdays and Thursdays has 18 in it. My class at 3 o'clock has 17 in it. Do the math. There's 6 or 7 free seats. I would just ask that if you come in, Luke found that out yesterday because he didn't sit in his typical spot. Because he didn't, there was already somebody sitting there. But if you come in a little later and you want to sit and work, that's not a problem. If you come in and you ask me as soon as I can, I'll go and make sure that the cabinet's unlocked or John will unlock it. All right? But as I mentioned to you earlier, I don't think that's asking too much. At 4 to 5, we're just going to pack it up. All right? Today will be a little bit earlier than that, but normally, just so we can all get out of here. And so I'm out of here by 5 o'clock. All right? All right. So they talk about Xcode. You've seen this before. If you weren't here last semester, no, you didn't see it before. All right, but Xcode's already on the system, and what you're going to see is on the bottom of your screen on the Mac, it's called the docking area down there. You're going to have that icon. That starts up Xcode. You literally take your mouse, if you had one, but you take the touchpad and you move it over there and you click. That starts up Xcode. All right, and bless you. And we're going to look at a lot of this stuff, but mainly we're going to look at, at these two. We've looked a little bit at playgrounds before. We're going to do it again. All right? Why? Because what we're going to do is we're going to build an app inside of a playground, and then I'm just going to show you how you can basically transfer it over and make it into an actual, from the playground into an app. Okay? And it'll be something fairly simple that we do in order to do that. All right? So the playgrounds, the idea behind these aren't executable files. Okay? The playground is just a scratch pad or a scratch area where you can type stuff in. You can actually write full programs in there. All right? But you can't execute them where you get an executable where you can, save it someplace and then run it from there. To do that, you have to create an Xcode project. So that's what most of this class is going to be about. All right? This adding the Apple ID to the Xcode preferences, don't worry about that. All right? It's interesting. I went out today, and I'm going to show you this from one of the Ray Wenderlich tutorials, because he shows in there, he says, click here to get the new Swift book. Okay? Well, I thought, it's electronic, so I thought, good, I'll do that. So I click there, and the hoops that Apple makes you jump through because they must immediately be able to figure out, oh, he's not on a Mac. All right. So it let me do everything I wanted to do, but then the format that it saved it in, it said I can only read it on a Mac using there's some kind of a reading program. I don't know what it is. So I'm going to see if I can find out what it is. I'm going to tell you and ask you if it is free, if you can load it on all the machines, because then I'll give everybody that book. I've already got it, and it's just ready to be loaded on there. All right, it's a Swift manual. All right. So look at that. We're already through the first 3 chapters, okay? Chapter 4, the guided tour of Xcode. When you start up Xcode and you actually begin and you say select a new project, create a new project, this is what comes up. Now, just so you know, we will spend time this semester where we'll probably hit each one of those icons that's in there. If your screen comes up and it doesn't look like this, then you probably are under the application that's under OS X. The stuff that's down here is just if you're building applications for an actual, not a mobile device, a non-mobile device, for lack of better words. All right? This is all the stuff we care about, and virtually everything we do will be off the application tab. So if you're not sure if it doesn't look like this, just single click up there, and then it should. All right? What we did all last semester, if you weren't in the class, what we did was we only did single view applications. And that just means one screen. All right? We're going to do that again this year. Not all of them. But we're going to start again from single view application. All right? After the single view application, we're going to go into master detail application. All right? And you might not think so, but you already know what that means. You've all seen sites where you get a web page that comes up, and over here, for example, you might have a whole bunch of hyperlinks. And if you click a hyperlink over here, it puts all the information from that hyperlink in it. That's basically the equivalent of a master detail. All right, so we'll go in and we'll do that. We'll look at, in fact, that's probably page-based. But we're going to do master detail, we're going to do page-based, we're going to do some tab, we're even going to get into the game stuff. How much? I don't know. A lot of it's going to depend on you. Because like I said, I'm just going to keep going until somebody says, no, I'm overloaded, that's way too much. All right? They explain what each one of those are in here. I'm not going to read from the book. You know, you all can. Now, everybody can, no one can say, well, I don't have a copy of the book. You all do. All right? So you can read that if you want more information than what I just gave you. Every time we create a project, we'll give it a name. That name can have spaces in it. This name, whatever you put here, that's the name that if you submitted that to the App Store, that's the name the app would have. Whatever you put in it, that's what that is. All right? This you can put in, again, anything that you want to put in for the organization name. Again, I keep putting in edu.blackhawk.jscott. Apple themselves suggest that if you're a student, you put in edu.self. I don't really care that much what you put in there, okay? It's not really that big a thing to me one way or the other. Whatever you put in there, let's see. Oh, that's the identifier, that's the reverse domain notation. This, you can put Blackhawk in there. Heck, you can put eBook Frenzy. That's the name of the publisher if you want to put that down. This is what I just mentioned. That's the reverse domain notation. All this stuff over here will be bundled together, and that becomes your bundle identifier. If you did put a blank space in here, if it said hello space world, this will now be hello hyphen world. All right, just so you know that. The language we're going to use 100% of the time is Swift. And believe me, you're happy about that. When I taught the class last year, I taught it in Objective-C. That language is very, very, very hard to learn. Everything in that language is a pointer. Everything that you create is a pointer. You use the asterisk all over the place. And that didn't meet with a lot of approval from the community. That's one of the reasons they came up with Swift. All right, if you haven't heard, you can all do this. In fact, I'll do it just so you see it. If you have not heard, because this is big news. It's big news anyway, but really because of Apple. If I go out to swift.org, Swift is going open source, and they're asking for people who want to get involved with it to go out there. The idea is they're thinking within a 1 to 2 year window, you will be able to create Android apps using Swift. All right, that's a lot of the reading that I've been doing lately. I like that because I'd rather be able to teach you, the same thing and have you be able to do it in 2 different classes. All right, there's nothing at all wrong with using Java, but I think Swift is easier to use than Java is. All right. The device, typically it's not going to matter. Okay. You'll probably either use Universal or you'll use iPhone. I can't think of a reason for just developing for the iPad. There may be a very good one. All right. The stuff on the bottom here, the core data is basically their equivalent of doing database stuff. So until we get into that, which is around chapter 50, just leave that unchecked. All right. The other thing too is if you do check the include unit tests, or if you do check the include UI tests, it'll create an extra folder for you. This would be done if you were working at an actual institution where you had design unit reviews and a lot of other stuff like that. We're not doing that here, so you can leave all 3 of these unchecked. You say, well, I want to check them. It's going to give your project a lot of bloat that it doesn't need. It'll take longer to load, etc., and you're not going to use any of it. All right. So they explain on the bottom of the page here everything that's involved in here. Okay. All right. This thing that you see right here, this file right here, you can get to in different ways. But this is the file that comes up basically when you have created everything and the project has actually been created. All right. And I know this is review, but I'm just saying it anyway. This area in here, that's your navigator area. That's got all of your folders and all of your files. This is your work area in here. You can open up an area down here, which is your console. And this is the area in here where you end up setting your properties, and it's like your toolbox too. All right, that's all in here. Hopefully you remember all that from last year. If you ever want to bring this file up, I don't even remember what it is. I think you click on the name of the project up here. I believe that's what it is. And then we'll bring that file up at any time. There's also a file that's associated with this one, and that's the plist file, which I think is here. I can't even read that. And that's going to show you a bunch of your system settings as well. Unless you're really going to jack around a lot with the system settings, you'll probably never open that plist file. All right. And again, I'm just going over this stuff, and I'm doing it kind of off the top of my head, and it probably shows. The big thing in this screen that's right here is what's shown right there in the blue that I drew the circle or the square around. And that is, by default, when you create any kind of an app for Apple, by default, it doesn't work if you're upside down. It's not a joke. But they actually put that in there, so if you were going to create an app that worked while you were upside down, you would check that. All right? That's probably going to take a little while longer because just like with the Android, if you're constantly tipping stuff from one place to another, it's going to take a while to save settings and reload settings. So most people keep that unchecked. But notice if you only check this one right here, then your app will work in portrait only. If you've got a game, what a lot of gamers do is they have just these 2 checked because you've got to play the game whether you're on an iPad or whether you're on a phone, you've got to play that landscape only. All right? All right. And it comes up here, and this is your user interface. Okay? So again, this is going to be the area that's got all of your files. So anytime you click one of the files that's in here, and you'll either be clicking the main.storyboard file or one of the .swift files. The contents get loaded into the area that's in here. All right. This area in here is going to change depending on what's open in here. All right. You can sort of see it down here. It's probably not going to let me draw anything around it. It's not. That's right there. That's the equivalent of your toolbox in that area that's right there. It's actually, I believe it's called the object library here. All right. And again, this is going to have a bunch of different things in it. One thing I never showed you last semester, and I don't know why I didn't, but just so you know, that if your storyboard is taking up the whole screen like this, if you double click on the storyboard, it basically shrinks it way the heck down. And then if you double click on it again, it makes it bigger, back to its regular size. Sometimes people like to do that. All right, they like to have it smaller for whatever reason. You can also go in here, and we'll talk about that either in the next class or one of the ones soon. And you can set the size up. I'm taking one of the Udemy courses online, and one of the first things the guy who's teaching the class always does is he likes to set up his size for his storyboard so it's mocks a 4.7-inch iPhone. So he does that when he starts all the time. You don't have to do it, but you can. A few more things that are in here, some of which are kind of hard to see. This is maybe the most important thing that's up here. That's your view controller button. All right, that you do a lot of different stuff based off of that. And up here, you can't see it very well. That's your run button. Once you're running, that's your stop button. And up here, again, it's hard to see. It says iPhone 6, but if you click on it, there's a drop down, and that shows whatever simulator you're going to be using. It's an emulator for Android. It's a simulator for iPhone. Again, they're showing some of the stuff that appears here. What they're showing here, and this looks like it's on page 14, is what they're showing, what's this here, this object area. And it does different things. It looks different ways depending on which button up here you click and what you currently have active in your editor window. All right, hopefully that'll all start coming back to you. If I said, hey, during the break, how many of you went out and bought an Apple machine and were trying to write Swift programs? I would be surprised if anyone raised their hand, and if anyone did, I'd be surprised if it was more than one person. All right, I did a little bit during the break, not a lot. Okay. All right. You know this, again, if you were in the class last semester, so you come in here, and let's say we wanted a new view controller. We literally just click on here and drag. I know it's not going to look like that, but that's because this is the way that the PDF is. So I click here and I drag and just put it out into my area. That's all you got to do. All right. They show an example here, so they clicked on the label and they dragged it out here. This is very easy. You can put it anywhere you want to put it on the screen. All right. And you can put it anywhere you want to put it on the screen, and it'll come up with these little lines here. If you want it centered, just like we saw on the Android, you can have basically dotted lines here and dotted lines there. Okay. What you're going to find out until we get into auto layout, which is about around chapter 20, 15 to 20, somewhere in there. But until we get there, you can put it on the screen and it'll look perfect. And then if you go for example, from portrait to landscape, it might disappear, or it might be shoved into a corner, or it might look be someplace else. I'll show you a couple cheats, so to speak, before we get there to try to make it so it looks decent regardless of where you are. All right. You can play with fonts, all the stuff that you've learned about. There's nothing new in there. This is some of the stuff that we're going to work with when we get to auto layout, and even before auto layout is what's in here, this stuff. All right, you can have it automatically center in the container, etc. All right, so that's kind of what they're doing right here, horizontally in container, vertically in container. So you might think, well, that isn't bad. I just click this button, click to add two constraints. Now it's in the middle, whether I'm landscape or portrait. Not necessarily. Usually there's a little bit more you've got to do than that. Not a lot, though. All right. Already mentioned that when you run it, you click the button that's up here. Whoops, there. It won't let me click it, but in there, that button where it says A. That's the start button. That's the stop button. Where it's B, where it says C, those are your list of available simulators. And up here, this is going to be kind of your progress bar, where if you go and run the program, it'll tell you that it's building or that it's completed or whatever. All right. What you probably won't like as much with this, if you remember this from last semester, as opposed to doing Android, is typically a lot of the error messages that come up in here are cryptic. And what I mean is those are runtime errors. When you're creating a project and you put something in wrong, it's usually easy to figure out what the problem is. All right. But after you run it, it can be a lot harder. All right. I'm going to skip the running it on a physical device. We're not going to be doing that. And yeah, there is a way that you can go in there. You can do Windows devices, and you can go in there and choose any emulator, or simulator, I should say, that's in the list. All right. They talk a little bit here about build errors. This is 4.8. I should be keeping up in here. And this is page 24 if you are following along in the book. And they say there, as we have not actually written or modified any code, it's unlikely you'll find any errors. But you know that even if you've got a blank project, you can run it and it'll still look like a phone. Okay? All right. Another useful feature, it says here, is the ability to monitor the performance while the program is running. Well, we never talked about that, so let's talk about it right now. I'm going to have to back up quite a bit to show you this. If you look up here, in the stuff I just got the bad blue stuff around, when you've got this first thing clicked, it says use this as my area for my navigator area, my navigation area. I think it's the one next to it. That's going to show a lot of the stuff that'll show you how much CPU usage you're using, etc. Each one of these does a different thing. All right, many of these that are towards the end are involved to try to give you some information when you run into errors, and they're all have tooltips. So if you take your mouse and put it over it, all right, you can get information on it. The file that you use to create your interface, it's the one that's in here that says main.storyboard. And every time you want a new screen, you need a new, basically you need the equivalent of a new main.storyboard file. All right, and we're going to be doing that. We're not going to have, in fact, within a few weeks, we're going to be building stuff that's going to that'll have multiple screens on it. Now that I backed up, I've got to get back to where I was. Oh, they show you some stuff in here you may or may not be interested in. I looked at this and I found it confusing, but you might like it. So on the bottom here, notice it says page 19, but it doesn't map up to what's in the book. This is the bottom of page, or middle of page 25 in your book. There's a thing down on the bottom of your screen that's right there. You have to look right where I'm showing you right there. And if you choose it, you get kind of a 3D effect of what your project looks like. They call it an exploded look. I've looked at it, and for what we're doing, I don't know where that's going to really help us with anything we're doing, but it's something that's available to you if you have an interest in taking a look at it. All right? All right. Next are playgrounds. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to deviate from here just for a second, and I want to show you this. What I'm going to ask that you do between now and the next period is, however far we get today, all right, you go back and just page through those pages and see if you got questions on anything. And then ask if you've got questions before next class. Also, if you get time, look at this, go to the Wenderlich folder here. I'm not going to print out hard copies. I did that last semester, and half of them just stayed on the tables. All right, so I'm trying to be as green as I can be. And take a look at these. We actually looked at the first one last semester. So the first one, it's a really, really good review, maybe even better than what I'm providing right now. Part 1 is called Swift 2 Tutorial, a Quick Start. And it's very common sense. Okay? They have you start to build, sorry, but it's a tip calculator. Doesn't look like the one we created. All right, it looks different, but just so you know, they give you all the code. They even say, and I didn't add the code here, but they even say at the very end and throughout the project, they say, here's the final playground file. So if you want that, you can even download that if you have any problems with it. All right, it's like I said, it's 12 pages, but I think there was some good stuff in there. I read it and I went back and reread it last night because I don't want you to think, I actually do read this stuff. I'm not going to assign stuff to you before I've read it. All right. The other two, I have just paged through. I haven't spent a lot of time on it. In chapter 2, they build that tip calculator in a lot of depth, and they go over every step as far as what they're doing. All right. They put a slider in there, and they do a few other things. Start with a single view, how to fill this out, boom, boom, boom. I'm not going to read any of that to you. You can look at it yourselves. All right. But they explain everything. It's kind of nice to do this because you've already built that app. Again, it'll look a little different, but you built it already if you were in the class last semester. So you can take a look at it. All right? And then the third one is called tuples, tuples, protocols, and table views. They have you go back and then just, I'm not going to say spice it up, but make some changes to the tip calculator, and they bring in some new features. Even if you created the tip calculator, I can guarantee this. If you do read, just skim the first one, but if you read this second and this third one, you're going to learn something. And it's all going to be stuff that we're going to cover, but it will introduce it to you. All right? And it's pretty soft touch and everything. All right? And they have you build virtually all of it into a playground. So what's a playground? If you bring up a playground file, that's exactly what it looks like. You get a comment at the top. Keywords are in purple. The stuff within strings is in red. So anything that you put here, so if I put in here, for example, var first name equal Jeff, var last name equals Scott. Over here it would say Jeff, and then on the next line it would say Scott. All right? You can do calculations in here. You can even do stuff we didn't do last semester. You can create things. You can create buttons in there, etc. And what's kind of neat about doing that is you're just doing it, you'll see it on the screen right away. Then if you like it, you can just go and copy it into your regular program. All right, so it's a really nice little play area. That's what it's meant to be, is kind of a scratch pad. And you see it says ABC here. All right, this area that's right here, that's your work area. This area here is where it shows you the different information. And this second one that's right here, I can't click on it, but that one, if you click that, that opens up down here your console area. Okay, there's the console area down there. They have you do some very simple examples in here, and they run through it. They show you loops. They show you all sorts of stuff. Okay. You may or may not have noticed that when you create a playground, one of the things that comes up here is this, import UI kit. And literally that just means that's the user interface kit that allows you to bring up that object library that I showed you with the view controllers and the labels and the text, the edit text, and all the other stuff that you have available to you. Here they actually show you how to go in and create labels, and they have you work with colors and fonts just so you can see how to do this right inside of the playground. All right? They even show you how to bring in images to a playground file if you want to do that. Some artwork, rotation right there, okay? All right, this we're going to jump through fairly quickly. You say, well, geez, we have been going quickly. Yeah, I get that. But we're going to go, I'm going to go, if someone will please tell me when it's about 3:55, all right? We may finish 6 through 9 in that time, all right? The data types are what you'd expect, okay? You may remember this from last semester, but if you weren't here last semester or if you forgot, if I have got something, if I want to create an age, I can do this. Var age equal 21. No semicolons. No semicolons in the language. Okay? If I want to do this, I can say var age colon int equal 21. I can do that. The recommendation from Swift and Apple is that you don't do that. All right? That you leave it off and you let the compiler basically figure out what it is. But you can put it in if you want to. Var is short for variable. All right? Let's say I have something that's called legal age. Then I use the word let. Legal age equal 18 or 21 or whatever it would happen to be. So you use var for variables, you use let for constants. And again, the recommendation from Apple is, unlike you do it in most other languages, oh, it's a constant, I'll put it all uppercase. No, they recommend you don't do that. All right? But if you attempt to change legal age in the program, After it's been set, you get an error message because it is a constant. All right? So they go into all this, all that here. They talk about some of the data types. If you're working with strings, strings must be in double quotes. To my knowledge, I don't think it'll take single quotes. This looks a little funky right here. You may or may not remember that. So if I want to go and print to the console, if I want to say print, you don't say this. You don't say print the legal age is plus legal age. Although that probably would work. You don't need a semicolon. That probably would say the legal age is 18. That probably would work. The recommendation is that you do it like this. Print the legal age is, then you put a backslash, and then in parentheses, the name of your variable. And when you do that, when you go in and you run the program, it goes through a process that's known as interpolation. And it goes through and it says, oh, that's a variable, or it's a constant. So it goes and it finds its value and it puts it in there. Yes?
So the second example with the delimiter or whatever it is,
Yeah.
the escape, is that because it's all in parentheses? That's the reason why you're doing that. The other one's with the concatenation, the first one?
All I can tell you is they decided that that was going to be the way that it was set up. I'm sure it has something to do with, it's probably similar to what you're saying. I don't really know. I'm sure there's a story behind it, but that's just the way they decided to do it. And there are a lot of other languages. PHP does interpolation.
That's what I'm saying. So that seems like it would go slower if you did it
Yeah.
that way.
Well, but their recommendation is that you do it this way, because what happens is the compiler, when you use this and when you use this, et cetera, and you do all the other stuff that we've been talking about, the compiler has got so many different optimizations built into it, all right, that they say that'll actually work faster than that will. That's their claim. All right, some of the different data types, again, there's int, there's a bunch of different flavors of int. So there's int 32, there's int 64, there's double, there's float. Boolean type is just bool, B-O-O-L, like this. All right, there's characters, and notice that's even weird. If you only put a single character in there, it knows that that's a character. And the big thing is, okay, you can use Unicode. I don't remember what it is offhand. If I remember, I'll look it up. There is a way when you are writing your programs, it's a weird shift combination or command combination. It's like command equals or something. It brings up the list of the emojis. So you can put those. You can actually make variables. And so if you wanted to have a variable that was called crying, and you took an emoji of somebody crying, you could do that and use that as a variable. Why you'd ever want to do that, I don't have a clue. All right? But I guess if you say, well, I'm a visual programmer. Okay, cool. Whatever. All right. Strings, again, within double quotes. New line, \n. The same kind of escape characters we've used before. There's nothing in there. But just remember, when you do a \u, that allows you to have access to anything in the Unicode character set. Previously, there were 65,536 Unicode characters. Now it's somewhere around 108,000. There's basically a character for every language there is that's known to man. All right? So if you had any kind of foreign language that you wanted to put in there, you supposedly are able to do it. All right, variables and constants I've already talked to you about, so I did that first. All right. Now, if you do this, I'm asking you a question. If I put that down, is that going to work, or am I going to get an error message? If I just put var h, anybody want to guess?
You get a warning.
Well, it's somewhere between an error and a warning. The system doesn't know what kind of variable it is. It has no idea. All right, so, okay, now we'll help it. We'll do this. Now you'll get a warning. Because what that's saying is I'm going to stuff an integer in there, but what value is in there right now? There isn't one. So if you start to create variables that look like this, then you have to put that in. That's wrapping the variable. All right, well, I don't want to do that. How do I get around it? Give it a value to begin with. All right, but you'll see that a lot in code. Not only that, sometimes if you forget to put it in, the compiler will warn you and it'll put it in for you. And I still haven't figured out the whole thing to it because sometimes it puts 2 or 3 of them in, depending on how technical you're being. So that's going to wrap it, and then to unwrap it, you use an exclamation point. This is the most type-safe language that's known to I was going to say a man, but that's not politically correct. That's known to human. All right, as far as I know, it's the most type-safe language. All right, they don't believe in the concept of null. Instead, they use nil. And you're going to learn about this very soon. You should always check whether you're using this or not using this. Anytime that you have a human being involved on any kind of program. So let's say we were doing a program, we were doing that tip calculator. And well, there's a chance somebody could try to press the button to find out the tip, and maybe they didn't put a value in for what the meal was. That's going to screw things up. So you typically will check first to see if it's not equal to nil, you'll do the stuff you want to do. Otherwise, you'll either set it to something you want it set to, or you'll print out an error message, or you'll do something else. All right? All right. Swift also has tuples. All right, so what? They're tuples. All right, you can put anything in the world you want to put into them. Okay, that's one thing. But the cool thing is, I can put 800 things in there if I want to, and it's still one tuple. How many things can you return from a function? How many things? One. That one thing can be a tuple. So you can return 800 things from a function. That's how you do it. All right, you say, well, what's the big difference between that and an array? In many ways, they're very similar. All right, but tuples actually have some internal methods that arrays don't have. Okay? And they will tell you in the book, too. All right, they will tell you in the book that, well, one thing that's changed between Objective-C and Swift is now in Swift, in arrays, you can mix data types. But a lot of times when you start mixing a lot of data types, instead of using an array, you'll end up using a tuple. Again, we'll get into all this stuff as we go on. It's just being introduced to you right now. This is the whole thing with the optional. So again, this is chapter 6. If you're going to look at anything between now and next class, look at pages 45 through about 48, because that talks about the optional type. And this is what I mentioned to you before. You'll check. If it's not nil, do whatever you want to do. Otherwise, do whatever you want to do to it. So it says, if an optional has a value assigned to it, it is said to be wrapped. So then you unwrap it. And they give some really good examples in the book. Much of the stuff that's in this book is simplistic in nature. But it's baby steps. Remember, you're in chapter 6, page 59 out of 651. All right, so they have a lot of examples that are in here. As I mentioned to you previously, many of the programs that are in here are very simplistic, but they're things you can build on and add on. Typecasting, remember the old typecasting where we did stuff? Where are we? Let's see if I can find an example here. All right. You can cast variables, so you could put the variable type into parentheses so you can force something to be of a certain type. Be real careful when you're doing that, because people say, oh, wow, I can take a string and I can make it into an int. You can, but when you try to use it, the program's going to puke out because that string won't have any value to it. All right? Now, it's not that it'll have 0, it won't have any value to it. All right, so it's easy. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. So they give an example right here. It says, it just lets the compiler know, it says needs to be treated as a string. So notice you're forcing it here to be a string. So you're saying as string, but since you're forcing it, you need that exclamation point. The good news is typically when you need an exclamation point or you need a question mark and you don't put it in, typically what's going to happen is in your code window, you're going to get the red line and the little X on the side, and if you highlight it, that's what it's going to tell you. And it'll even give you a fix. All right? But be real leery, because usually it'll just give you one fix as opposed to the Android editor that'll give you a bunch of them. Just because it gives you a fix doesn't mean that's what you want to do. That's a piece of software that has looked at what it thinks you want to do, and it does it. It's like there's a real big difference between going to a shrink, if you go, or psychiatrist, if you go to one of them, and reading a book on psychiatry. All right? All right. The operators and expressions, there's really nothing new here. That look familiar? Unary, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, and modulo. All right? There's a plus equals, there's a minus equals, a times equals, a divide equals, and a modulo equals. This is kind of new because most languages don't provide these. There's an and equals, and there's an or equals. All right? I don't know exactly why you'd use that, but there might be a really good reason. First time I saw it, I thought, cool. I don't know if I'll ever use it, but cool that it's got it. All right? The increment and decrement, plus, plus, minus, minus, to add or subtract 1. Put it at the beginning, it's a pre-increment. Put it at the end, it's a post-increment. Here it's a pre-decrement, there it's a post-decrement. You say, I don't know what you're talking about. Look at the example in 7.5. All right? That's in your book on page 53. They do a real good job of explaining it. The comparisons, notice there's no triple equals. There's double equals, greater than or equal, less than or equal, and not equal. There's no triple equals because this is a type-safe language. Attempting to do something that it would consider to be illegal is not allowed. All right, and that's the main reason there is no triple equal sign in here. The logical operators, you know them, you love them, or and. Nothing new in there. There is a range operator, which is kind of cool. So if I do this, this isn't the greatest of examples, but just so you see it. If I put 2 dots in there with a less than, that's going to go from 1 to less than 10. So in other words, it'll go from 1 to 9. But if I do it like this and I say I ... 10, that includes it. So if you do the double, you usually put a less than sign, means 1 less, and the 3 means equal. Be real careful when you do that because typically the compiler likes it like there be no spaces in here and no spaces in here. It's grabbing it and it's creating it like it's one operation. I've already had it not work. I've gotten it to both work and not work by putting spaces in there, just by sitting there and playing around with it. The ternary operator, you've seen this before. That's the question mark colon operator. So for instance, you've got 2 numbers here, and you say x greater than y. The true action means take x and assign it, or have that print. And the false action means print y. Okay? Bitwise, I'm not even going to go over. Unless you're writing an operating system, or it's possible if you were writing a game that literally you were going to have your creature or whatever it was move, you might use some bitwise operators, but probably for more than 99% of the stuff that's done other than that, 99.999%, you'll never use the bitwise operators. They show them there too. It's on the bottom of what page? This chart is on the bottom of page 58 and the top of page 59. All right? All right. Flow control, there's nothing new here. I shouldn't say that. For is exactly the same. Same way you've always written for is, just like this. Nothing new, right? For in, remember if you use a for in loop, you're not allowed to change the value within the loop, but it's a quicker. It's supposed to execute quicker than a regular for loop. All right? While, looks exactly the same as what we've done. You know, remember, you don't need parens. Again, to go back to your point before, Zane, they recommend you don't use parens because that's another optimization they put into the compiler to make it run faster. All right? But if you want to put in parens, you still can. If it makes it easier for you, if you got that mindset and you're stuck in that, then do it. Here's this is new. It's not a do while anymore. They changed this in Swift 2. It's a repeat while. What's the difference? You say repeat now instead of do. And you don't need the semicolon on the end. It's almost the only time you really need a semicolon in this language ever is if I decide I'm going to put in here if I'm going to say var age 1 equals 15, var age 2 equals 21. If I do want to put them on the same line, then I need a semicolon. Other than that, you almost never, ever need a semicolon. And the recommendation from Apple is that you never use one. And that you don't do that. And I think that stinks anyway, so you shouldn't do that. Break and continue work the same way. Break breaks you out of whatever control structure you're in. Continue skips the rest of that and goes up to the next iteration, exact stuff you've learned previously. If statement works the same. Else if works the same. This is new. This is something that's unique to this language, and I'm not going to lie to you. It's something I'm still working with. This is the bottom of page 66, and the example is on page 67. It's called the guard statement. And as it says right here, with the guard statement, it was introduced to Swift 2. It contains a Boolean expression which must evaluate to true in order for the code to be located after it to be executed. It must include an else clause to be executed in case it's false. So there's an example. Anything you do with a guard, you can do with an if. But again, this is supposedly something that was optimized to run faster. This language is all about speed. They're trying to make this a language that everybody wants and everybody needs. All right? And I know I'm a little late, so this is the last one we're doing today. Chapter 9. What's missing? You don't need break anymore. As soon as it finds a matching case, it does it and it gets the hell out. What if for some reason I want it to grab that and I want it to keep going? What if I want it to fall through? I put the word fall through in it. Okay? So here's an example of, again, I wish they wouldn't have it over 2 pages, but just so you see it. Oh, one thing that is new in here, must always have a default because it's a type-safe language. So if for some reason I'm checking here for a value, what if it's not a 0 or a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or a 4 or a 5? In other languages, you can leave that off, and what happens next is indeterminate. Not in this language. You must put a default statement in there to handle anything that you're not expecting. You can combine things. This is done differently than it used to be. It used to be you'd say case 0, colon, then on the next line, case 1, colon, then on the next line, case 2, colon. Now you do it like this. They don't want you to do it the other way. So if you said, would it work if I still did it the old? I've never tried it. Here's the real power of a case. You can use ranges. And you go, wow, cool. No, they ripped it off completely from Visual Basic because that's the same way you do it in VB, and they've done it like that for about 10 years. But that's cool because in the past, you didn't want to use a switch because if you had long numbers, so again, if I'm writing my program for a test and I want to say 90 to 100 is an A, I used to have to write 100 of those different cases. Now I can say case 90 ... 100. And then I can say print grade is A. Case 80 ... 89. Print grade is B, etc. All right. They really are very much encouraging you to use the case statement, the switch statement with a case in it. All right. Notice you can actually do calculations in here. You can use a where clause where you do a calculation. it's gotten to the point I'm looking at this and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I understand what's happening, but to me, I don't care how much you're trying to optimize. You can optimize something up the wazoo so much that you understand it and no one else looking at it has a friggin' clue of what you're trying to do. And if you don't comment it and you come back to it later, you have no idea what it is you were trying to do. All right? There's the fall through that I mentioned, one word, fall through. And that's it. So for next class, that was a lot to run through in an hour. I understand that. But what I'd like you to do is look through in your books the first 73 pages, because that's what we've just gone over. So look through the first 73 pages of the book and page through, bring up those 3 different Word documents that I showed you. All right, and if anybody really needs them printed, let me know, I'll print them. If you say, well, geez, I don't have money in my print budget anymore. Somebody came up to me last year, what do you get, like $500 in your print budget? And this woman came up, what is it?
Not 500.
Well, I don't know what it is, but whatever it is,
$15.
oh, whatever it is, she'd spent 2 cents. She said, I don't think I have enough money to print this. So what have you printed so far? Well, I printed a page once, then you probably have enough money. But if it really bugs you, let me know and I'll print you off hard copies. All right, that's it. But when you come in here on Thursday, get a Mac, because we are going to be working right away. And get a tablet, because we're going to be hopefully doing that too.
Yeah, grab the same number tablet.
Like an error when I was copying it over. Can you either email it to me or throw it back on the drive for a minute?
I'll put it back on the drive. In fact, I'll tell you what, I'll just grab it right now. Copy, I'll throw it onto your,
Okay, I'll grab it right away.
yeah, take a look and make sure that you get it. It'll be there in about 30 seconds. How you doing?
Have you saved it?
What's that?
Have you saved it?
No. But I will in a second, huh? It's not gonna work. Yeah, well. All right, it's being copied right now. So there, it's on right on your H drive directly. So let me know if for some reason it's not there.
Oh, yeah, I got it.
Okay.